Please give a very warm welcome to Howard Jacobson.
This is tough. One of the fears I always have when I go to Hay, and I go to Hay a lot, is what's happening in all the other tents around me. And when you pass that long queue, you're being led to your tent by somebody who says, you're not in the tent you were going to be in, and then you know what that means. You're in a smaller tent than the one you were going to be in. And you pass the tent you were going to be in, and there's this long queue of people. And you can't really concentrate on your own words because you're listening to the applause and the laughter coming from and I thought tonight would be different from that, but it's actually... This is actually worse because it's not only the sounds of other writers, it's actually the sight of other writers. And everybody has been so good. And the fantasy that you have as a writer, and Peter made a little joke about writers not being competitive, and of course he's quite right. It is a very, very competitive business because there's something about being a writer. Maybe any kind of art is the same, but I feel it's worse if you were a writer. You want to be the only writer on the planet. And you do somewhere or other, when I write a book and I think that's really good and it's finished, I never say this to anybody, and I'm only saying it to you because I know it won't leave this room. But the thing that you feel, this will kill all other books. There will be no other books in the world after this one. Not just living books, but all books. People will throw away their Dickens and their George Eliot, and there'll just be this one book and it's you. And I can't, having heard what I've heard tonight, relax in the feeling that I am the greatest writer who has ever been, or even the greatest talker. Look how moved people were by you. No, people have never gone, for me. Tonight, you and I are going to sleep together. Why aren't you moved? Why don't you go, What if I were to tell you that at our age, sleeping together means actually sleeping? Still you're not moved. People talking about addressing thousands upon thousands of children, young, eager faces staring at them. My audiences are so old that I feel we've done well if by the end of the event, half of them have made it through still alive. Just a quick word about this 30 years. I'm very anxious about something that I've been doing the last few days. Peter asks me to, all very well, the chimes of midnight, but I pay for those chimes of midnight. I have to tell everybody what a wonderful place Hay is. I have no difficulty saying it because I believe it, but I've been doing countless interviews about how long I've been going to Hay. And only earlier this evening, I was describing how when my first novel came out, I was immediately invited to Hay, and it was a small number of it's not the grand tournament it is now, just a small number of people in a pub, and how lovely it was, a few writers, and if a reader happened to amble by, they would amble by, and Peter said, come in, and they would sit down in the courtyard, and I spoke vividly about it, and I can see the whole scene. I've just written my first novel. There's a problem. My first novel came out in 1983. If this is 30 years old, that means the festival started in 1987. Where was I, Peter? There's another thing about Hay that's both makes it exhilarating and also it makes you very anxious. It is a touch hierarchical. Peter knows who's in and who's out. And the minute you get on that train to Hay, you kind of start, and as you near, you know how well you're doing because of who's on the train and where you're sitting on the train. A few years ago, I found myself in the same compartment as John Updike. I thought, John Updike's going, where's that going to leave me? We're probably on at the same time, the same tent at the same... I'll have 3 people, he'll have 4 tents. They'll all be there. But I went up to try and make myself better. I went up to John Updike and I said the most stupid thing I've ever said. I said, Mr. Updike, I don't even like John Updike's books, but there he was. And I said, Mr. Updike, I'm so pleased to see you here in England that I noticed we were just passing into Wales, and in Wales. And I just want to say, and then I said this, on behalf of the writers of this country, welcome. I said that. And he looked at me as though I was mad. And I thought, that is the maddest thing I've ever said, because I knew in a few minutes we'd be in Hereford. And what would happen when we get to Hereford is we would go out and there'd be an old battered van to take me from Hereford to the festival, and there would be a grey Mercedes to take him to the festival, and I would be muttering to my wife, as I do whenever we get there, well, it's all right for him, he gets looked after. Look what we get thrown into. And there, we got off the train, and there was the battered black van, and there was the grey Mercedes, and I was muttering to myself, and I dragged my wife along. I said, we'll be sleeping together tonight, but you won't be enjoying it. And we moved towards the black van, and suddenly the driver of the grey Mercedes got out and said, Mr. Jacobson. And I got into the grey Mercedes, and John Updike got into the black van. How sad that I should remember that as a triumph. The other thing, quickly, I need to say about Peter is the other way you know whether you're in or out or not is what I call the hug of death. Peter somehow or other knows what's going on in the literature. If you're up for a prize, Peter knows even before you're up for the prize whether you're going to win it or not. So on several occasions, I've been in London just a few days before the announcement of a long list, a short list, any list, a mention or something, and Peter will come up to me and he will put his arms around me, quiet, not say a word, he will just come up to me. He's done it twice in the Groucho Club. Put his arms around me very quietly, put his face into my neck, and moved off. This is the hug of death, which means you're not on any list and you've failed. Just once, before I won quite a big prize, I ran into Peter the day before, and Peter went. And I dared to hope. And it was the case. So, just one word of advice from an old writer to all you young writers. If Peter comes up to you and gives you a big hug, it's not something you don't want it. Because I'm obedient and I've done what I was told to do and I'm supposed to speak for 5 minutes. This is my 5 minutes. The story I've just told is called The Hug of Death. This is called My Life as a Pig. You might think from the titles of my 2 new books, The Dog's Last Walk and Pussy, that I know something about animals. I don't. I did have a rabbit when I was about 6, a lovely, gentle-spirited doe with long eyelashes. She gave birth to 6 bunnies, which she ate 3 days after delivery. I didn't see her eat them, but I found the fur in the hutch. Were I to have... I finally get an R, one solitary R. Maybe I'll get another R. I love those bunnies. Thank you. That did it anyway for me and animals, but then came the pigs. In 2000, the Hay Festival inaugurated a prize with the snappy title, the Bollinger Everyman Woodhouse Prize for Comic Writing. Since I had always claimed I was too good a writer to win a prize, I wasn't sure I should accept. I mentioned my reluctance to Peter, who explained, well, it was a sort of meta prize, in which spirit there'd be no prize money, but I'd get a pig. I explained in return that a Jew was not meant to eat a pig, and by extension, I presumed, though the matter had not previously come up, a Jew wasn't meant to keep a pig either. Embarrassed, Peter told me that the pig was not mine to keep. I'd be ceremonially presented with it in a field in Hay, give it the name of my winning novel, and then return it to its owner. This was fine by me. Stephen Fry, who had made a memorable TV Jeeves, would present me with the pig. I'd name it The Mighty Waltzer, my winning novel, and that would be that. Whether a reciprocal mistrust governs relations between Jews and pigs, I don't know. But my prize pig looked pleased enough to be called the Mighty Waltzer, perhaps not realizing that Waltzer was a Jewish name. For all I know, he still lives and still answers only to that name. But that was not the end of it with pigs. Some 13 or 14 years later, and I can't explain why it took them so long, Bollinger, Everyman and the Hay Festival again awarded me the prize for my novel Zoo Time. Carrying a magnum of Bollinger, a copy of P.G. Woodhouse's novel Pigs Have Wings, and my own Zoo Time, I made my way to the field where the photographers were waiting. We hit a snag immediately. The pig with which I was to be presented and whom I was to rechristen wouldn't come out of the sty. Shyness, the photographers thought. But I reckoned the title of my novel was to blame. Just put yourself in the pig's place. You enjoy liberty and fresh air. You have the run of a large field in the beautiful Wye Valley. Why would you want to be addressed as Zoo Time? Zoo Time! Here, come on, Zoo Time! Wouldn't come out. So an alternative pig had to be found. Eventually, out one trotted, or rather, out one hobbled. It transpired that the only pig available who was willing to be christened Zoo Time had only 3 legs. And what is more, it only wanted to be photographed from the side from which the 4th leg was missing. It's very Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, isn't it? I can't work how that joke would go, but it didn't matter how hard the photographers tried to snap the pig's good side. The pig, even with a leg missing, was too quick for us. We had to shoot its disability or not shoot it at all. Eventually, we got round this by my holding the Bollinger in such a way that it filled the space left by the missing thing. People who saw the photographs, the publicity photographs later, marveled that we had found a pig that had a magnum of Bollinger for a 4th leg. I have a reason for mentioning this. Next year, my novel, Pussy, will be eligible for the 2018 Bollinger Everyman Woodhouse Prize for comic writing. I don't see how I can fail to win this. Peter, a pig called Pussy. That's irresistible, isn't it? What a wonderful night it's been. Thank you, Peter, very much.